Hey everyone, it is David Thomas with Orchard Hills Church and your morning devotion. Hope your morning is off to a good start as well as your week. And I hope that you get a lot of value from these words here for the next 5 minutes or so. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the state of your family. All right. So my father, Dr. Stacy Thomas, he spoke about the state of our country a lot on Sunday, and that was part one. And if you missed that, you can definitely go and watch that either on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page. And he's going to finish that up with part two next Sunday. So make sure you tune in for that. And it is going to be streamed actually early because we know it's Memorial Day weekend. So it's going to be streaming at 6 a.m. Sunday morning just through Facebook. So there's no live session. It's just going to be through Facebook so everybody can enjoy the holiday weekend with their family and really think about those that have fallen to protect our rights of our country and just the way that we live in general. So make sure you tune in for that. But all that being said, he talked about the state of our country. And today I really want to bring that a little bit closer home, pardon the pun, to our home, to our family. And let me read Psalms 133:1. It says, "How good and pleasant is it when God's people live together in unity." And it really is. It's such a blessing to have a harmonious, God-directed family, is it not? And I know a lot of people aren't able to experience that, and that's a very sad thing, but it doesn't mean that it is without hope. So we know that prayer and faith are very powerful. So we need to turn to God in our prayer, turn to God in our pleading, turn to God in our faith, and ask Him to fix any situation that's not right in our home that might be taking our spouses or our children, maybe relatives that are living in the house, away from God's will for our lives. And so what's step number one? Step number one is to first be God directed and God driven yourself. All right. I mean, it's so funny how all of these devotions always kind of circle back to really pursuing God and being in the will of God. I did a 5-part series a while back. You can find it in our YouTube about how do you know what the will of God is for your life. I highly recommend you watch that again. In a nutshell, you need to pursue God every day. First and foremost, you have to be saved. So you have to be a believer. So first and foremost, if you want a harmonious home, and that's only going to come through the love of Christ, you have to be saved. You have to be living a God-fearing life, living a spirit-filled life. And speaking mainly to the head of the household, right? Now, this is not just to pick on the men, but it starts with the house, the father, right? The head of the household. So you have to be setting that precedent that God is directing your life and that God is the love of your life. And if your children and your spouse can say that about you, that he was a God-fearing man, I mean, so many other things can fall into place. So that's step number one. As the head of the household, and I'm speaking to myself as well, make sure that your family, your children, especially in this day and age, can see that God is directing your life and that your love for God is what's showing you which path you need to take in all areas. So step number two is make sure that your household is centered around God's will, God's presence. Do you pray together as a family? Right. And I'm not just talking a little short prayer before dinner. Right? And I believe there is a time for long prayers and short prayers. I believe that a short prayer before dinner is warranted. Right. Nobody wants to hear a 30-minute long prayer before they're ready to eat. But the point is, do you truly instill a love for Christ in your children? Now, I know a lot of your children are already grown. It's not too late. You're always going to be times where you can get together with your family and talk about Christ, talk about, what's going on with them, what God has shown them lately, what God is doing in their lives. And especially if you have grandchildren, definitely you can spend time with them in the Word, read them Bible stories, read them, tell them about things that God has done in your life, and instill that hope and that just joy of expecting God to do things in their life, right? So there's so many things that we can do as mothers and fathers to make sure our house is centered around God's will for our lives, God's presence, God's communion. So make a time, right? So step number one, make sure that you first are setting the example. You are living in the faith. You are living in the Spirit. Step number two is make an effort to create a habit or a routine, so to speak, of spending time with Christ as a family. Maybe it's bedtime prayers, right? Or bedtime Bible stories, or reading, books like The Pilgrim's Progress, one of the best sellers of all time, if not one of the best sellers. It's an incredible book that teaches incredible principles that you could make story time, right? For your family. Make a habit, and this is step number three, make a habit of teaching your family that you expect God to do things in your life. God is just not someone you put on the shelf and you go to when you need something. No, he needs to be an active joy, an active love, an active part of your everyday life. And you can instill that in your children by what? Asking them questions. What has God shown you this week? Read this scripture tonight, Jenny. What did God say to you when you read that? Right? There's so many ways that you can instill the love and the presence of Christ in your home. Because I promise you, if you've applied this and you center your home around Christ, doesn't matter whether it's grandkids, grown children, young children, or whatever situation you are in, you will create a home that we just read it, right? How good and pleasant is it when God's people live together in unity? We want to be God's people in the house. We want to be a family centered around God. And you will be amazed at the amazing blessings that will outpour after that. So, like I said, my father's going to speak about the state of the country. Part one, if you missed it, you should catch up on that. Part two is coming up next Sunday. And today I wanted to talk about the state of your family. Make sure that the state of your family is centered around God. So I hope you get value from this. Once again, that's David Thomas with Orchard Hills Church. If you did, please like, comment, share this with others. It's such a powerful, principle that so many people, all people, need to apply. So we'll talk to you real soon. Have a great week.